Hi everybody, it's Susan again with the Leo full moon coming up this Sunday, the 5th of February. It'll be on Monday for those of you in Australia, New Zealand, or Japan and the Far East. Far East from me in any case. And here in Europe and the United States and Canada it will be on Sunday. So I'm looking at this chart from universal time. You can ignore the houses. I'm not going to look at the house structure, only the aspects between the planets. Whenever we have a full moon, we have a moon in opposition to the sun. So of course the sun is in Aquarius, and that is ruled by Saturn, which is still in Aquarius. And Saturn is slowly moving into new degrees that it hasn't been before since 2020 when it entered into Aquarius. So after this full moon, we're actually entering into a whole new era of Saturn for the next 6 weeks before it leaves and goes into Pisces. Because this moon is ruled by the sun, we have to find the sun, which is, of course, here in Aquarius. And the sun in Aquarius is in what's called its detriment. And that's because the sun represents everything Leo stands for. And, of course, in its exaltation, it's in Aries. And both Leo and Aries are about me and my desires and my consciousness and my awareness of life. And there is an element of standing out from the crowd. And of course Aquarius is not that at all. It's the crowd and fitting into the crowd. And this is why the sun in Aquarius is always a little bit awkward. There's an adaptation to society that's required. And that way of standing out is in stark contrast to whatever the norm is. And that will be different depending on culture and context and era and so on. But the person with the sun in Aquarius often feels they need to mark themselves differently, partly because the sun just seems to dissolve in Aquarius. And that's also symbolized by our northern hemisphere winter, but that's not the reason that the sun in Aquarius has this character. The moon in Leo is about expressing yourself through emotions and through what you think is important to you. And that tends to create an energy of wanting to be paid attention to. My dog actually has the moon in Leo, and she will insist that people give her attention and a little pat on the head, or at least say something fussy around her when they first meet, regardless of whether this person likes dogs or not. And she will insist on that until she gets acknowledged, and then she'll calm down. And that's actually quite similar to a person with the moon in Leo. A person with a moon in Leo just needs you to acknowledge them. Leo requires acknowledgement. So when you say, yes, I hear you, I see you, I understand that you're feeling this way, they'll feel that they can somehow now move on, because otherwise the desire for acknowledgement or recognition is not met. And otherwise they'll just keep upping the tone, the emotional tone, until they get noticed. And so this may be something that's happening in our experience personally, or we can see this in the world around us. And as this moon is in Ashlesha Nakshatra, we're going to find it even more passionate. This is all about passion, finding your personal expression, whatever brings you joy. It aligns up beautifully with Leo in terms of what it means, but the nakshatras don't take their definitions from the signs. They are independent. And so this adds to that quality that I've just described of needing to be acknowledged, wanting to express, wanting to show up. This could be also about uplifting. So Leo is in its highest qualities and its best qualities. It's going to be uplifting and inspirational, like all of the fire signs. And it's not meant to be selfish. It's not meant to be all about you. It's meant to be about how you can uplift others. And I think this is an absolutely brilliant message that we urgently need these days. While we uplift others, we also receive. And this is the paradox. Often people are so turned into themselves that they don't realize that it's actually by reaching out and helping other people and being the high tide that lifts up all of the boats, as it were, that we actually feel better. We feel good about ourselves when we make other people feel good. And we know that when people are depressed or they're not in a good place personally, there's a lot of selfishness. There's a lot of inward attention. There's a lot of attention on me, how I feel, my needs, and so on. And one of the remedies for, at the very least in mild depression, I'm not going to go into chronic cases, but for people who are feeling low, for people who are feeling disconnected, one of the best remedies is to go out and do something for somebody else. And even anonymously, and in fact, especially anonymously, one of the best things that Leo can do is get over the need for personal recognition and just do the thing that is necessary as a leader. And so this Aquarius-Leo axis is about leadership and being a ruler, being a leader in society. And that requires a great deal of skill. It's very easy to see how many narcissistic rulers we have, and even sociopathic, unfortunately for the rest of us. And we see that when there's too much of a need for self-aggrandizement or self-enrichment in the role. And so when we're really stepping out into society, Aquarius, as this Leo role model, then we can actually start to contribute in a way that actually does lift us up and give us a sense of purpose and self and real acknowledgement. But again, it's paradoxically not about us. And so this is the important thing to realize about this Leo moon and about Ashlesha Nakshatra. I am not able to convince my dog of this, but you as a person can take this message and you can absolutely understand the profound meaning behind that sense of how can I contribute so that I also benefit from everything I'm doing here. Now, aside from this opposition, which is the tension that creates the full moon, that is about integrating this individual need with the social need, we also have a square to Uranus. Now, this energy of 15 degrees is going to be very significant over the next little while. Keep that in mind over the weeks and months to come. It has been significant throughout much of 2022, and in particular, this moon resonates quite a lot with what we saw at the Leo new moon that was happening on the 28th of July, 2022. And that was just the day that Jupiter turned retrograde, and it was also a couple of days before the triple conjunction that was happening in Taurus of Mars and Uranus and the North Node, all together at 18 degrees. And so we're approaching those degrees. We're still in terms of the moon and the sun, we are in an orb to square those degrees right now. And so something about last summer, for those of you who remember the film, something about last summer is being recalled at this Leo full moon. So if you remember what was going on at the end of July, beginning of August for you, start to make some notes, write things down and start to trace back what was going on in your life. How has that manifested now? Because now you're seeing the results of all of that new moon energy from the 28th of July, 2022. And you're going to now see how it is you need to proceed based on all of that. And the proceedings will come from this Saturn that's moving into new territory, because now you're going to be moving into something you haven't yet done, but you're doing it with an understanding of everything that you've accumulated over the last 2 years, this understanding of Saturn in Aquarius. And soon after that, Pluto is going to move into degrees that it hasn't yet had. And we're going to go into completely new territory as they both shift in the month of March. So this T-square that we see here with Uranus, the moon, and the sun is going to be challenging basically the degree points of 14 through about 18 degrees of all of the fixed signs. That's, of course, Taurus and Leo and Scorpio and Aquarius. So you have been challenged over these last couple of years quite a lot. Us cardinal signs had our turn, believe me, and you're being challenged by this particular energy. And so it's now a time to make some choices that are probably going to be after a phase of tension. The tension is necessary. Tension is just something that makes you feel a sense of urgency about things that is necessary motivation to make the change. So sometimes I hear in the comments people get very worked up about planetary energies like oppositions or even an ingress of a planet into a sign. Don't give it that much power. This is like a forecast of the weather. You don't give the forecast this much power. You simply observe, what is the forecast telling you? Is it warning you of high winds or lots of rain? Well, then you prepare for that. We are not battered around by planets. We are not battered around by astrological predictions, and especially based on a total stranger's prediction of what might happen in your life. You must integrate this in terms of your personal understanding and make this work for you. So you take this energy and you say, well, if I'm feeling uncomfortable right now, I am the agent of change in my life. And understanding that, what do I need to change? Often, most often, the change that is required is a change of attitude. And so regardless of whether your outer circumstances can change or not, the way that you frame it, the way that you look at that needs to change. And this is something that we're getting a lot of help from this time around because of this kind of tension that we have with this T-square. So this is the paradox, is that the T-square provides us this impetus for change. Now, again, that can come through some kind of tension or conflict. And I think if we look outside in the world, we will see around the time of this full moon and in the days before and after that we're going to very probably find some kind of tension coming to a head that needs a resolution. In this case, when we look to the T-square, we find the solution in the house that's opposite, in the empty space, and that's Mars. So here we have Mars and Gemini. Mars and Gemini is about talking. It's about communicating. It's about expressing with confidence. And of course, if we're not doing that well, then we're doing that in such a way that it can create some conflict. And that Mars and Gemini not only rules that opposite space that needs some kind of attention, some kind of action, but it also is in a square to Venus. And Venus is, of course, ruling the North Node, and especially that Uranus, which is in this T-square to begin with. And so the solution lies with Mars and Venus coming into cooperation. But in a square, that can create this kind of push and pull. Now, that can be in relationships in terms of your own life. Some kind of major adjustment is required when there's a square. And that can be, of course, in terms of our global situation. And so we have Mars that's not super happy, but we have Venus that's in great dignity. Venus loves being in Pisces. She sees the big picture. She loves everyone. And Venus in Pisces wants to find peace and happiness and beauty and joy. And so here we find that we can potentially find a solution, especially as Venus slowly moves on into a very nice sextile 2 or 3 days after this Leo full moon. So it'll be the 7th and 8th of February. We're going to find Venus is going to go into a sextile with this Uranus. And there we're going to see that a potential may be opening up for conversation. Dare I say diplomatic resolution. And if not, then it could also mean that the economic situation is changing in such a way that a response has to be made. And this can no longer go on in this way, for example. So, of course, it's these days impossible to predict one way or the other. And certainly with so many factors at play, the Europeans seem to be driving themselves off a cliff, and our leaders are literally going insane with this pressure that is being applied through NATO. The Germans have now basically declared war on Russia, which is the most fantastical thing that I have ever, over 35 years of studying international relations, this is just the most mystifying moment of history. And if we survive to write history books about this period, I believe that they are going to be full of absolute and utter amazement at what is actually going on right now. So if you have the opportunity to speak to your elected leaders, get out there now, because they're losing their minds and they're not somehow acting rationally. So there's a lot we can say about different country charts, and I will be posting a video shortly on Pluto as it's moving into Aquarius and how that affects all of these international organizations that we're influenced by, as well as so many of the countries that we're influenced by right now. So get out there, talk to your elected representatives, and make your voice heard, because just as this Leo moon is asking, we need to show up and manifest our heart's desire. We need to show up and manifest what it is that we want. So let's do this and come together and find a solution that is a bottom-up solution that is very much in the spirit of Aquarius. And especially that will be more and more urgent as Pluto moves into Aquarius and requires some really big changes to how society is run. So the rant is over. I'm going to come now to Jupiter, our planet of wisdom, which is now, after this full moon energy, is going to slowly start to move into new degrees as well. By the second half of February, we're going to have Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter all moving into new degrees that they have not been in yet. And this is going to be especially noticeable, if I just take the transits here, it's going to be especially noticeable as Jupiter is going forward to Valentine's Day, everybody's least favorite day. And we're going to find on Valentine's Day, in the evening, at least dinner time for those of you who are going out on a date, it's going to be at a time when Venus is approaching a conjunction with Neptune, super romantic, but also a little pie in the sky, let's face it. And we're going to have now very slowly Jupiter from the 14th moving into completely new degrees. And this is going to be approaching Chiron very shortly in the weeks ahead, coming up on a conjunction to Chiron in March. And I see this collectively as being a very new phase in our collective situation, especially regarding this war here in Europe. And something different and new is going to come in. Now, it's still, I think, not looking great. It could be once again that things are going to have to get far worse before they get better. This is going to be a long and protracted war. This is definitely what the astrology points to, but also it is very much what the geopolitical scene points to. And all the more reason to tell your leaders to stop sending weapons to Ukraine, which is simply going to prolong the agony. And so the only way out of this situation is to implore our leaders to back away from this cliff's edge, because there is no way for them to continue this war without a massive spread of destruction. So Saturn, of course, remains in a semi-sextile to Pluto all the way through this season. And because of that semi-sextile, we're in this period of tension. That's this tension of what needs to be changed and what it is that is resisting this change. And we need to, again, step up and make some kind of noise about the change that we want to see. And Venus is definitely going to give us a glimpse of new hope. Venus is in great dignity. Venus conjunct Neptune is also the potential for us to see, things can be more optimistic, things can be more high-minded or spiritual in their solution. And let's hope that in some way, shape, or form, that this also will apply. We see that this is in a semi-sextile to the Sun, and semi-sextiles don't tend to give us the results that we really want, but we can always hope. In our own lives, of course, this is going to be affecting us in various different ways. And so let's have a look at all of that right now. Aries, you're going to have this happening in your 5th house of expression, and that, of course, is very much the Leo house of the natural zodiac. And so you're probably the one who is embodying this energy the most in terms of this Leo full moon. So this is an opportunity for you to see, where do you want to express yourself? Where do you need to show up in some way that is creative and that is really opening your heart to someone? The moon represents the mind. And in the tradition, in ancient traditions, the mind is the heart. It's the heart center. And if you consider how our mind and heart are synced, then you can imagine that both are coming from the same energy. A wonderful opportunity for you, Aries, to feel intuitively what you're feeling now, how you can express that, how you can act upon that in a deeply creative way. And this can also involve your children. It can be something to do with how you engage in your work, especially if you're an entrepreneur. It can be things like meeting somebody and actually falling in love. That would have to be seen in other aspects of your chart. The tension for you is coming from the 2nd house, and that can be with regards to money or family or anything else that is affecting the 2nd house, of whatever supports you. Again, that tension is not new. This is something that's been happening for 4 years already. And so you're kind of used to whatever this is, but now it's coming to a head. And again, go back in time, go back to the end of July 2022 and see what was going on, especially in that 2nd house and this 5th house of creativity and children and so on, and see what was being challenged or triggered or started or inspired back then, and see where you've come from there. Now, what needs to be done about that? Now, because the Sun making this opposition, creating this full moon, is in your 11th house, there's something to do with your groups and associations, or perhaps even your aspirations and goals, your desires, the things that you want to see come true in your life, the plans that you have for your future. This can also, again, be with regards to money, because the 11th house is the 2nd house. From the 10th, it's the money that you earn from whatever it is that you do. And so, again, we have this message potentially of money, because that T-square is pulling in quite a lot of activity between the 11th and 2nd house. Your first house is being expanded with Jupiter there, and of course Chiron still going through there, so that's some kind of way of looking at how it is that you can express yourself and at the same time heal something around your self-expression, heal something around your, potentially your self-esteem as well. And this is certainly also what Uranus has been doing in this 2nd house of yours over the last 4 years. So quite a number of shifts coming up for you, Aries, as you go through these next few weeks, where Saturn and Pluto are going to be shifting from your house of social groups and career. And you can find out more about those changes in my Saturn in Pisces video and in the Pluto in Aquarius video. And those are both sign by sign as well. So at the time of this full moon, you've got your ruler, Mars, in sextile to Chiron in your 1st house. And this is, I think, another message about healing something around your self-esteem, your self-expression, who you see yourself to be. It's a great opportunity for you to question, are you believing too much in what other people have told you in the past about who you are? And is that the thing that needs to be expressed differently now through that 5th house? So best wishes for this lovely full moon for you. I think going to be very productive in terms of who you are, Aries. This is what you're here for, and I'll see you in the next video. Taurus, this full moon is happening in your 4th house. It's a very emotional place. The full moon is always going to be highlighting emotions, and especially in the 4th house, it's going to be even more expressive in your case. You might find that there's a need for you to step up in terms of how you feel about things with either with regards to your career or what you do in the world, or with regards to family and home and what's supporting you in that context, in the area of whatever it is that makes you feel secure. And of course, our emotional security is the foundation for the rest of our security in life, so that's something very important for you to pay attention to. This is all coming back to last summer, so you will already have some inkling of what's going on, because you were very much featured in this last summer in that triple conjunction that happened in your sign in the 1st house. Go back to the end of July, especially the 28th of July and the days around that, and into the beginning of August, and see what was changing for you, what had changed, what needed to be changed, what was happening in your world, and how did you particularly change. And that's especially if you have any degrees between sort of 14 and 18 degrees of Taurus. You're going to be feeling this quite powerfully. Also, going to the house of career, where Saturn currently is ruling this sun, it's definitely been a couple of years of real integration of what it is that you need to do in career, how you want to show up in career, or in your social contributions, how you show up in the world. And now you've got this next couple of weeks after this full moon, going into the beginning of March, when Saturn finally leaves this space, where you're going to be integrating new information, new messages around how to go forward in all of this. I'll explain a lot more of that in the new moon video coming up for Aquarius in the couple of weeks following. You have Mars in your 2nd house, so there's definitely been months and months and months of activity around money, around your sense of what is valuable, what you need to adjust in terms of money and values, and whatever stuff you might have. And this is now also moving back over territory that you would have experienced already in September and October. So there you can have a look back on the autumn and see how that might have been evolving for you, and how you've learned something since then in the retrograde period of November, December, and early January. And now you can take action based on what you understand there. Venus is in the 11th house of groups and associations, your ruler. This is a lovely time for you to reach out into community, into networks, into people, like like-minded people, or people who share goals and dreams with you. It's potentially a new opportunity to meet somebody special if you're looking for a partner, and having that Venus in the 11th and then with your moon in the 4th, you could really be emotionally stimulated around this. It's a really wonderful time for meeting new people. You also have a square with Mars at this time from the 2nd house to the 11th, and so you could have new earnings opportunities as well, something coming in the house of money for you. This nonetheless is probably going to come from some need to adjust something. That could be adjusting the way that you make money, or adjusting your way of investing, or adjusting your attitude even around money and making that work better for you. If the fourth house represents property for you, then you're noticing something about property. That could be about a desire to move, for example, with Saturn in the 10th house. That's not surprising. And it could be also with regards to investments, with all of this second house energy with Mars there since last August. And so if there is something about property or real estate in any way, then this could also come to a head where you're recognizing what needs to change. You're being shown something that you understood potentially already last July. So be sure to go back to the Saturn in Pisces and the Pluto in Aquarius videos for the sign-by-sign interpretations, and you'll get some extra information about what's going on in the weeks ahead. Good luck with all of this, Taurus. Gemini, this is happening in your third house. This is a very comfortable place for you. It's your natural house. And so the moon is highlighting something around communications, around your neighbors, your neighborhood, siblings as well, potentially, and things that show up in terms of where it is that you need to step up for yourself with courage and willpower. You've got a lot of energy in your first house yourself, with Mars there since last August, and Mars is now moving direct in your first house, giving you a lot of energy, a lot of courage. And with the moon in the third house, you're now able to process something emotionally and make that make sense for you, so you can express things in a better way. The moon really loves to be in the third house. It's a place of her joy, as it were, traditionally. And that's because this is a house of enormous change and communications and interaction and socializing. And the moon is all about change. It's constantly changing all through the month. Of course, we have different phases, which is what creates a month, or a month if you prefer. And so we have this energy here for you that's quite intuitive. It's quite natural. It's your energy, Gemini. This can also help you in terms of softening perhaps this energy of Mars that's in your first house, where you might find that you're able to potentially repair any conflicts that may have come up, if you've got some challenges that you've had through arguments or through being assertive in a way that people weren't comfortable with or weren't familiar with in terms of your natural way of being. The Sun is in Aquarius, and of course Saturn is still there too, and that's in your 9th house. And the 9th house is also about learning and higher mind, and about everything that you want to achieve in terms of your sense of purpose in this life. And so there's a lot here that's really showing you how it is that you can step up and grow through this awareness, whatever the awareness is for you at the time of this full moon. And it could have something to do with studying or teaching. It can have something to do with commerce as well, because the third house is related to commerce. It's related to all kinds of exchanges. It's related to internet, of course, as well, and any kind of communication with regards to informing people or just chatting with people, but that can also be through education. So the third house, 9th house axis is about learning and about sharing what you know. And of course, you're very good at that, Gemini. It's natural for you. This can also highlight something that has been showing up with Saturn there for the last couple of years. And so you're really learning something in these next couple of weeks after the full moon that is actually quite new. It's not yet something that you've experienced. So this full moon is also showing you something about how to move forward, both from now, this period of time since the new moon a couple of weeks ago, but also since last July. So when you had this very big, powerful energy here in the third house, and expressing itself through the Leo new moon, and which was at the same time being expressed through the triple conjunction, which was in your 12th house, in terms of foreign relations and connections with people from faraway places, or ideas that are from faraway places. And so there's a lot of energy there showing up again that has already been stimulated last summer. Go back to last July and have a look at all of that. Jupiter in your 11th house is also showing up a need for you to step out into groups, and this is going to be something that sticks with you until May, mid-May. And Jupiter highlighting new possibilities, including new financial sources. With Jupiter going through the 11th house, it's the money that you earn from the thing that you do in the 10th house. And that can expand, and it can expand into groups that are there. It'll expand into whatever the relationship is that you create. Keep in mind that Jupiter in the 11th is considered to be quite favorable. It's a really good place for Jupiter. It brings you a lot of favors from people in high places. So make sure that you're making the most of this time. Don't sit idly by waiting for things to happen. I think with Mars in the first house, that's probably impossible for you right now anyway. But definitely use this time to build bridges and and create some new networks, create some new support that you can find in your house of networks and associations, but also your future, the things that you want to accomplish in life. So best wishes for this full moon, Gemini. Enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, your full moon is happening in the second house of money, and this is everything that supports you. So there's a great deal of awareness right now about what it is that you need to support you. And this is something that could be financial. It could be about how you organize your money, your investments, your income. And this can also be around, your habits in terms of food. What kind of food are you eating, or what are you doing in terms of your body, in terms of your health? And this is especially connected to what was going on last summer. Last July, especially around the 28th of July at the new moon in Leo, and only days after that, we had the triple conjunction in your 11th house of other groups and communities. We still have the North Node and Uranus there. It's still a very important factor right now in what's going on in this full moon. Listen to the introduction to find out more about that. And understanding that tension here for you is in the money axis. So the 8th house of money that comes to you from other people, from other sources, including clients potentially, and the 2nd house of your earned income and the money that you already have, or the wealth that you've accumulated, and including family and other support, and the 11th house, which is the money that you get from what it is that you do, the 2nd house from the 10th house of career. And so it's very loudly speaking about money here, and including potentially issues around self-worth. Are you showing up in a way that actually justifies what you're being paid? Are you being paid enough? Do you need to adjust your income or ask for a raise, for example, if you're working for someone else, or adjust your fees if there is some kind of realization around this? Mars has been going through your 12th house, which has been causing quite a lot of disturbance in the unconscious realm, and in potentially in regards to things that you need to do behind the scenes, preparation work, for example, a lot of activity in things that don't necessarily show up. And that's, of course, the same message that Saturn and the Sun are bringing from Aquarius in your 8th house. So you're busy, 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 but nobody's really seeing how busy you are. You're feeling it, and this might also be an emotional impact that shows up around that you could be expressing at this time. Jupiter is going through your 10th house. That means that you are going to be preoccupied by career. There's a lot going on there, but it also means a lot of opportunities. But Jupiter doesn't just drop stuff in your lap. It's very important to understand that you need to take action. There's something that needs to happen for these opportunities to arise. As I mentioned in the introduction video, Jupiter is going to be covering new territory in the second half of February and onwards, and so really start to understand the lessons that you learned in the period from the end of July all the way through the autumn, and then try to apply that now in a new way. A new understanding is there. You can change things in such a way that you're bringing yourself more benefit. You've got Venus in the 9th house. Venus in the 9th is a wonderful place. It makes you feel very inspired. It makes you feel inspiring to others as well. And it also gives you an impetus to expand into ideas or even travel. It would be a great time to travel if you have that opportunity, especially up until the 20th of February before she goes in the 10th house. So this is a really nice energy for you to show up for yourself in terms of your value, in terms of money, and understand what might be holding you back. Look to that Mars in the 12th house, where you might be finding what it is that's holding you back, and that can be simply where you're not taking action in your best interest. Good luck with all of this, Cancer, and I'll see you in the next video. Leo, this is of course your full moon. This is all about you, and now you can have a look at what it is that you want, what it is that you need to change. How do you feel about things? So this is going to be quite instinctive for you. You're going to have a sense of what it is that is important in terms of yourself, important in terms of what it is that you want to express or show up in your life. Emotionally, that can come through desires and things that you want to do, things that you want to accomplish, and especially with others in relationship. And so you're coming to a realization with Saturn, of course, having been there for 2 years, and Sun moving through your house of relationship. You feel now what it is that you need in relationship, and this is speaking to you quite clearly. You already had a sense of this, Leo, all the way back in July at your new moon from the 28th of July. Around that time, you would have experienced quite a lot of shifting and change in terms of your desires and the things that you need to express about yourself, or the things that you want to do in terms of who you are right now. And so that first house, seventh house axis has been very prominent for you for the last couple of years with Saturn there. And now you're learning something, you're seeing something that has been already pointed to last summer. Go way back in time, go back those last 6 months and really start to track the changes, track what has happened around that summer period, but also track how you've been feeling. Have you been actually taking action as necessary in that regard? And that action for you is happening where Mars is in your 11th house of groups and associations and the people around you that might support you in terms of your plans. Mars's action, where have you been taking action or not? In the house of your future hopes and dreams. Have you been hesitant around that? Have you been holding back? If that's the case now, you're really seeing where you need to step up. And Mars is moving direct now. And so you've got all this energy to do so. Jupiter is supporting you in your 9th house, and that's also your sense of purpose, your sense of higher mind, the bigger picture, the long game. And Jupiter will really inspire you because it's trining your sign. It's very favorable for all the fire signs to have this Jupiter there in Aries. And so have a sense of this boost that you're getting from Jupiter moving through the 9th house where it really loves to be. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is the natural 9th house of the zodiac. So it's very happy up there and going to give you some really interesting inspiration and insights over the next few months while it's still there. Venus is in your 8th house of money, and that's a point of contention for you for the last very long time already, 11 years, while Neptune has already been there for a very, very long time. And with Venus there now, I think you might be understanding something about shared resources that might be very closely connected to this relationship issue that might be highlighted right now. That can have something to do with what you need to reorganize or what it is that you're potentially going to receive in terms of shared resources. This can be very helpful if your partner, for example, is getting some kind of pay rise or if you're getting some kind of bonus through another person. And that can include an inheritance or some other payout that is unexpected. Venus is passing through there until the 20th of February, so this is very much a short-term phase, but it's going to be very beneficial, and whatever action you can take in that regard, and certainly in regard to how you feel about yourself and how you feel you need to show up, all of this is going to be very helpful. So just be careful that with this Mercury in sextile to Neptune at the time of this full moon, that you're from your 6th to your 8th house, your everyday life to the shared resources, that you're really seeing clearly what is going on in terms of what you contribute through your day-to-day activities. With the moon in your 1st house, it's a good time for you to express your true self rather than putting on a performance, which is the shadow aspect of Leo, and really speak to what is true for you. Speak to what's in your heart and share that with others. And you'll find that you might be actually in a place of uplifting others through what it is that you communicate. Best wishes, Leo, for all of this, and I'll see you in the next video. Virgo, this is happening in your 12th house, and so it's a very private place, probably very emotional at this time, because that's also a place where we can sense what's going on behind the scenes in our unconscious, or there may be some things that rise to the surface where we realize something about how we've been showing up in life, and for ourselves particularly, how we're doing the things that we need to be doing or potentially undermining ourselves. This can be something that you realize. The sun is moving through your 6th house of everyday life and health and habits and all of the things that will structure your life. And the 6th house is in fact your house. So this is a very comfortable place for you as well. So you're having an opportunity now with this moon in the 12th house to realize something about what is going on in your everyday life and how that's affecting you. This is, I think, the most powerful, most impactful change for you. You also have Saturn going through that 6th house, so there's been probably quite a lot of looking at your everyday life and health habits and how you structure your day-to-day life over the last couple of years. This is now shifting into your 7th house as of March. So over these next few weeks, you're getting the last bits of information about how to structure yourself, how to support yourself, how to operate in your everyday life, and be able to create a solid foundation for the 7th house relationships that you're going to cultivate moving forward. Venus is currently in that 7th house, and so bringing you a lot of harmony in your house of relationships. And if there's no specific person in your life, then it's certainly going to bring you a lot of harmony in terms of just the people around you, the people that you connect with. Also very opportune for meeting new people, a wonderful energy for Virgos right now with Venus in the opposite sign of Pisces. You also have Jupiter in the 8th house, and that's bringing you some good fortune in terms of money that's coming from other people. There can be a boost to that. There can be a boost to your income that comes through clients, for example, or it can be also some kind of money that's coming to you from another source, a partner, for example, or it could be a payout of some kind, whether it's an opportunity to get a loan that you need to make a big purchase, or whether it be something to do with money that's coming to you like an offering through an inheritance or something along those lines. Jupiter is bringing you some genuine benefit in the 8th house. Not always an easy house, but when Jupiter goes through there, we can usually make the most of it. Jupiter in the 8th is also a great opportunity for you to understand the deeper workings of yourself, of your unconscious, while the moon is in the 12th. This is an energy that supports that work, understanding an emotional pattern or understanding a psychological area of your life that could really benefit from some freshening up, some positivity and stimulation. With Mars now moving direct, you have a lot of energy for your career, for what it is that you need to do in the world, and this is going to continue on for a number of weeks to come. There's a bit of tension there between the house of relationship and how you show up in the world, and so that might be in terms of an individual relationship that your work is impinging on your relationship, or commitments that you have outside of the home are impinging on time with that person. Whatever it is, it's something that can be resolved, and it will be only a blip because it only lasts for a couple of days, but it's still a symbol of this full moon and something to explore. And of course, your ruler Mercury is in the 5th house, and that's a lovely place for creativity. It's coming up on a conjunction with Pluto, which will happen only a few days after this full moon. And so something quite powerful is possible in terms of your creative expression, in terms of some insights or powerful communication. You might be able to state your case very positively or very strongly in terms of work that you have to do, speak with authority around any kind of paper that you need to write, for example, or presentation that you have to make. And otherwise, if it's more about your personal self-expression, then you could really find some new enthusiasm for a new project, a new hobby, something that you enjoy doing, including a new sport. If you go back to last summer, end of July, we had a new moon in this same area of the 12th house of your chart, and that was quite impactful because it was happening at a time where there was a lot of activity in your 9th house of foreigners and foreign lands and higher mind, your sense of purpose, your sense of drive in the world. And we still got Uranus there, and be sure to listen to the introduction to this video to understand more about that. And as Uranus is currently in a challenging square to your Sun in the 6th house and the Moon in the 12th, Uranus is showing you potentially that a change in philosophy, a change in sense of purpose, or a change in the circumstances around what it is that you do in terms of higher-minded subjects is actually on the cards. That is going to help you, the solution to that being in your 3rd house of communication, and recognizing that you might need to be speaking up more, or you might need to be more proactive in your day-to-day life to find the solution to whatever this tension is. So good luck with all of that, Virgo, and I'll see you in the next video. Libra, this is happening in your 11th house. It's lovely to have a full moon up there because you're realizing something about what it is that you want to do. It's highlighting something of a sense of your hopes and dreams for the future, also who you're doing that with and who you want to be with, who are the people around you, and you're learning something there about how you show up there or about how others are showing up for you. Some really interesting creative inspiration here as the Sun is also in your 5th house of creativity, opposing this moon, creating this full moon. And your ruler, Venus, is in your 6th house. So something to do with your everyday life and how you structure your everyday life, how you show up in your work or in your everyday world is very important at this time. Venus is in a square to Mars in your 9th house, which is similar to the 11th in the sense of having a sense of higher purpose. Mars has been there since last August, and it's been showing you what it is that needs to change in terms of your drive and purpose and your sense of your goals and aims, and potentially your sense of philosophy around life. And Venus with Mars is showing that there's a bit of tension around that and how you live your everyday life. It's a short passage of only a couple of days, so don't worry about this. But you're also in a really favorable position in every sixth house matter, whether it be with colleagues or how you show up at work or how you show up for yourself with regards to your good health and day-to-day habits. And Venus is going through this part of your chart in a very powerful position. She's in Pisces, in a sign that she's exalted in, loves being in Pisces, and that's until the 20th of February. So your ruler is in a really good shape right now. So whatever you're realizing about your groups and associations and your goals is actually going to be supported by this very auspicious energy of your rulership. You also have Jupiter in your house of relationship. So there's a lot of messages here that say that other people can really work in your favor right now. There can be a lot of helpful relationships in your life right now. And that's something to take full advantage of. It looks like a really optimistic moment for you, Libra. So the buildup of energy that you have here in the 11th house was already highlighted last year. Do listen to the introduction to this video to understand more about that new moon in Leo from last year and how impactful that is on this full moon right now. And you'll start to understand some of the pieces that are going on in your house of shared resources, the 8th house, where you're connecting with issues around marital partners or around money, around things that are coming to you. This has been disrupted, let's say, or completely revolutionized for the last 4 years, and especially so since the beginning of 2022 when the North Node moved in there. So there's a lot of messages to be picked up on from last summer, end of July, beginning of August, and going all through the autumn, where there's a lot of new things happening now triggered at this full moon. Going forward in the next few weeks, you're able to cut into new territory, doing something new. So really try and absorb the lessons of last summer and the autumn, and that will help you to move forward in the direction that you want to. This moon is showing you a little bit more about what is the direction that I want to go in my life. So good luck with all of that, Libra, and I'll see you in the next video. Scorpio, this full moon is showing up in your 10th house of career and social status and how you show up in the world. It's your ambition as well, and you've had a lot of tension here for quite a while because of the fixed signs being worked on so hard with both the nodes being in your sign in Taurus, as well as the activity of Saturn in Aquarius opposing your sign. And so you're really now looking at, what is my career all about? How do I show up in the world? What needs to change in that regard? How do I want this to look different now? And this is going to impact your home. There's some tension there between whatever home represents to you. That includes your physical home as well as your sense of security and how you show up in the world. Go back to last summer. Go back to last end of July, 28th of July, at the new moon that was in your house of career. Already lots of information coming in there that you have absorbed, hopefully, and learned from. And if not, go back carefully and excavate all of those things that have happened ever since, and particularly in the heat of the summer. There will no doubt be lots of information for you to use right now in understanding, what is it that I want out of my career? How are things happening for me in my career that need to be changed, either by me or circumstantially outside of me? And recognize how that's impacting you personally and in terms of your family life. So you might realize, for example, that you want to move, and this wouldn't be surprising because Saturn going through that 4th house will have had you somehow juggling home, physical home, and what that means to you since March of 2020. Your ruler Mars is in the 8th house of shared resources, so how money comes to you through other people, how you relate in your marriage. There can be some busyness around that, some challenges potentially with Mars in the 8th house that can be quite intense, and that's been since last August. So again, a reference to last summer. Now you're understanding things from the autumn. What's been going on in October particularly is going to inform what you're understanding, what needs changing or what needs to be done right now, and going forward until the end of March, when Mars finally leaves this quite challenging place. It can have you feeling emotionally challenged or psychologically challenged. The 8th house is also a place of our deeper psychology, our deeper understanding of things. It might have had you understanding things in a very new and helpful way, very revelatory when Mars goes through the 8th house. So it's definitely something to add to this element of, what do I want to do in my life? How do I want to show up? Then, of course, the big tension that has been disrupting your particular situation has been Uranus and the North Node in your 7th house of relationship. So lots of things changing there. Quite exciting, probably, very stimulating, but nonetheless leading to quite a lot of disruption. It has to be said that Scorpio and Taurus have been under the most pressure probably in recent years, along with your fellow fixed signs of Leo and Aquarius. And so you're here, the tension here is showing up in your relationship once again with regards to this full moon, because both the sun and the moon in opposition between the house of home and what you do out in the world, and in a tense square, in a challenging, requiring some kind of adjustment, requiring a change to the house of relationship, where we find Uranus in a very close square. And so go back again to the end of July, find out what was going on in relationship, what was going on in my life with regards to the triple conjunction that was happening at the end of July, 31st of July, 1st of August. And you'll get some more information here about how to move forward and what needs to change. Whatever was not acted upon, whatever became clear, whatever seemed to be something of a new beginning will become more evident now because of this moon showing up in your 10th house. Now you get it. Now you're like, okay, I get, there's something that I need to understand here. Jupiter in your 6th house is helping you with all of this as well, giving you a sense of can-do, a real sense of drive and purpose in your everyday life. And Venus showing up in your 5th house of children and love affairs and just joie de vivre, having fun, is also a really nice boost for you, even if that Venus is in a tension, in a tense square to Mars. This could also be quite good for passion and your romance, your sex life, for example, with Venus in the 5th and Mars in the 8th. That can actually be super stimulating. So you might want to go away with your loved one and enjoy these days around the full moon. And you might find that that actually resolves whatever tensions have been there already in that 8th house with your partner. So good luck with all of that, Scorpio, and I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, this is happening in your 9th house. It's lovely to have a moon in the 9th house because it's showing you something of understanding deeper issues, understanding a bigger picture. You're all about the 9th house, Sagittarius. This is your house in the natural zodiac, and your ruler Jupiter is in the 5th house right now, which is a lovely place to have it. So you're getting a lot of support at this moment by trine from Jupiter, your ruler, towards your 1st house of Sagittarius, or your sun or moon, depending. And so you're likely to have an interesting revelatory period with the moon in the 9th house, bringing awareness to understanding, bringing in awareness to understanding bigger principles of life, bigger philosophies, or recognizing things about learning, about teaching, about reaching out into life. And this could have something to do with even traveling, whether that be traveling in the mind or traveling to faraway places. Travel with a purpose. This can all show up in with that moon illuminating that part of your chart. And the 3rd house, which is the opposite end of this moon, where the sun is actually illuminating this moon from the 3rd house in Aquarius, is very powerful right now because Saturn is also there. And so the sun in the 3rd is showing you where it is that you're putting more of your attention. And the 3rd house is showing you that something very pragmatic is happening. Something very pragmatic, very local, very day-to-day is where you're going to find a lot of the effort that is required to resolve or understand what it is that needs to be done now. This can also be with regards to communication. And so it could be that you find you understand something, you get a principle or an understanding about something, and a sense of what it is, perhaps even in terms of your life purpose, and now you need to communicate about that. You have an understanding, and perhaps now you want to teach about that, or you want to share it, or you want to show others what you've understood in some way, even in your local organizations or with your friends and siblings, for example. You have Uranus and the North Node still in your 6th house, which has been disrupting things potentially around your day-to-day life. Kind of a sense of urgency around wanting to change how you show up in your day-to-day life, but that's already been there for the last 4 years. Just since last year, beginning of January 2022, you've had the North Node making this even more urgent. The Leo new moon happened in this 9th house last summer, so go back to July, the end of July, 28th of July 2022, and understand what was going on in your life. How did you shift your perspective, what it was that you set out in terms of a new destination, a new goal, a new idea, and how has this been showing up now? Can you see the results now? Are you happy with the results, and does anything need to change now? And knowing that this is intense square, it's in this kind of energy of needing to change something in your sixth house, where Uranus and the North Node have been showing you what needs to change and maybe messing things up in some ways in your life that requires quite a lot of response and responsibility. And now you go back again to the summer and take whatever information you gleaned from July and August in this sixth house, what needed to change. And that could be that your everyday way of operating was up for a real review, up for a real change, that something was shaken up that might have involved a new job or a need to look for a new job, for example. You have Venus in your fourth house of home and family, and that feels quite good. Venus is going to support all of that energy of feeling safe and secure, feeling good about yourself right now. So you definitely have a lot of positivity around this time. And although that Venus is in a bit of tension with Mars in your seventh house, where it's been since last August, causing some friction in relationships or a need to adjust around relationships, now something is going to be highlighted in that regard. But it will be resolved over the couple of days of that tension. It's not a big deal. But just to understand that security, the sense of security and what makes you feel happy is part of the solution of what was going on and what has been going on in that seventh house where Mars has been for so long. So good luck with all of this, Sagittarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Capricorn, this is happening in your eighth house. So this moon is showing up something of the inner workings of your life. It could be showing up also where you are maybe holding yourself back through fears or through things that you're a little bit nervous around. And this is a great opportunity to question all of that. Some revelation, some highlight of information can come to you that helps you understand yourself a little better in this regard. Also, with that moon there in the eighth house, you have an opportunity to see things that have been happening potentially in your shared resources, in your house of other people's money, and something is being revealed there. Something is being shown to you about what needs to change there. This is quite interesting because you will have already experienced this last July. So the end of July, 28th of July 2022, there was a new moon here showing you already what was going on, and that new moon is now being questioned. It's being highlighted, like now this is the result. This is the big picture that emerges based on this new moon of 6 months ago. So money definitely is playing a big role here for you, Capricorn, because this is also in the opposite house of the house of money, the second house, the house of your earned income, which is highlighting this moon. The sun in opposition to the moon is what brings the light to the moon. And here we have this heightened awareness around money, around your resources, around the things that might need to be done about that. And this is the last time that the sun will be in Saturn-ruled Aquarius while Saturn is still there. So it's really wrapping up almost 3 years of this transit of Saturn going through the second house and recognizing that there is a new structure required in terms of your finances and potentially around family as well, restructuring family, reorganizing around how you share resources, how people show up for you, and how you need to show up for them, whether that be in a material way or in a psychological and emotional way. So of course, Saturn is your ruler. It's going to be moving into your third house in Pisces in the beginning of March. And so definitely listen to Saturn in Pisces for all signs. That video is already up on my channel. Also, because Pluto has been in your first house for so long, for 15 years now, you're going to have a period of transition when Pluto moves out of that first house, and that will be by the end of March. So definitely also go to listen to what it means for Pluto to be moving into Aquarius, sign by sign, and as well as generally, and get some more information around that. So adding to some of the tension around the full moon, we have Uranus, which is in a square. And that square is going to require some kind of adjustment around fifth house issues. And those fifth house issues could represent your children, or it could be entrepreneurship, or a need for you to step up in a enterprising way in life. That could be also around creativity in general, or it could even be an opportunity for you to recognize where you need to create some rest time, some fun time, some hobby time for you after many, many years of a lot of tension. And whatever this is, it's been highlighted already last summer. So again, go back to that time of the end of July, beginning of August. Listen to the introduction to this video for more details on all of that, but go back in time and reflect on what was it that was being inspired, what needed changing, what was being sort of compelled in late July, early August in your life. There was something already showing up in this fifth house that was showing you where the change was and where things needed to change for you to show up more authentically and express yourself more authentically. You've got Mars in the 6th house still, so still a message that things can be a little bit tense around work, your everyday work, or at the very least very busy, very occupied. And also with Mars in the 6th house, I always want to remind people to check on their health and make sure that nothing gets ignored. If there's any symptoms that are showing up, make sure you pay attention. Any kind of inflammation, especially Mars, can trigger that kind of thing. But equally, you can find the willpower to resolve whatever's going on there. This can be nervous tension. This can be something to do with a feeling of burnout. That's especially because it's in the sign of Gemini. And this is something that you want to take good care of. There's no point in pushing through because your health is your wealth, Capricorn. There's no other way around that. So best wishes with all of that, and I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, this full moon is showing up something in relationships for you. This has been a big point of interest for you over the last couple of years. When Saturn has been moving through your 1st house, of course, it's also affecting your relationships. And this is very significant for you now because you're also now being shown something. You're being given some answers around things that might have changed in relationships, especially with regards to last summer, where the Leo new moon was already triggering an idea around something needs to change, something new to come in, or potentially even a new relationship that was stimulated. And that can be, of course, with regards to business partnerships as much as it is to lovers and important friends. So you're understanding something here about how you show up in relationships, and this is a very important message. There's a lot more information for you than just this full moon. So go back into last summer and start to pick it apart, start to understand what was going on for you around the end of July, beginning of August, what needed to change. And this can also include when Mars went into your 5th house in August, because Mars going into your 5th house would stimulate issues around love affairs as well, if that's about intimate relationships, and also what it is that you need to be happy. Mars has been showing you that maybe there are some things that you're not really taking action on that you need to feel happier, to feel better in your life. And that Mars in the 5th can be super dynamic to bring about change in the house of relationship because it's in a supportive aspect. And it's also supporting you from the 5th house into your 1st house. Mars is squaring Venus at this time, and so it suggests that there is something going on in terms of relationships. Venus is in your 2nd house of money and values. That includes your self-worth. That includes what it is that you feel about yourself. And I think that that's been going pretty well for you the last couple of weeks. And use that energy of feeling more positive, feeling more upbeat about yourself and about your money situation potentially, or about your overall sense of values, and use that to resolve whatever needs to be adjusted at this time, because there's clearly some big adjustment that's required. And it's not an adjustment just now. There's a big adjustment that's coming in a very extended way, because of course you've also had Saturn moving through your 1st house that's been asking you to change you for the last 3 years, and that's nearing its end now. But some new energy, new territory that Saturn, your ruler, is going to cover in the weeks following this full moon. And that's going to show you now what to do, how to restructure yourself and your relationships, and your 4th house of what makes you happy, and the 10th house of what it is that you're doing out in the world. Intention to this again is the 4th house, where we find Uranus in square to the moon and the sun here. Definitely listen to the introduction if you haven't already, because I tell a lot more about that there. And this tension is really asking you to make an adjustment to what it is that you need to feel secure, to what it is that you need emotionally, to what it is that it even represents home for you. All of those things, but the physical home as well as the sense of where am I at home. All of this is being triggered at this moment, and in a way that tension is going to be actually really, really productive for you, Aquarius. So don't shy away from the tension, move into it, and allow yourself to really grow through this change, because the change is on the horizon for you, inescapable right now, and definitely something that will allow you to grow when you find Pluto moving into your 1st house by the end of March. So be sure to listen to both the Saturn moving into Pisces videos and the Pluto moving into Aquarius videos if you haven't done so already. Best wishes for this full moon in Leo, Aquarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Pisces, this is happening in your 6th house of everyday life. It's where you work, how you show up for yourself in terms of your health. Are there any health issues that you need to pay attention to? With the moon there, you're going to see it all. The moon is going to highlight things that you will have already understood about how you show up every day, how you need to organize your day-to-day life, as of the new moon that was happening in July last year. So from the 28th of July 2022, and especially the last part of July, beginning of August, there was a lot of information around how it is that you need to show up for yourself, how it is that you need to organize your time and your efforts, and who you show up with in your day-to-day work. And this is being highlighted by the sun, which is in your 12th house. And that's coming from a place of deep understanding. It's coming from a place of your spiritual understanding, your sense of what it is that needs to change on the inside, from the inside out, and potentially also with Saturn having gone through that part of your chart for most of the last 3 years, you're now understanding something about your spiritual self, or restructuring that aspect of your life and how that influences your day-to-day life. That energy is the energy of confinement as well. So maybe now the moon is showing you where you need to also change, how it is that you've maybe been hidden away for too long, or something has been showing you that maybe you need more time to confine, maybe more time to retreat and stay at home and relax a little bit, maybe sleep a little bit more as well. And the moon is going to be highlighting all of these things. You have Venus in your first house, and Venus loves being in Pisces, and so in many ways you're feeling very good around this time, and certainly up until the 20th of February when Venus leaves and moves into Aries. And this is something that gives you an upliftment, that gives you a sense of can-do and a bit of a boost. You also have Jupiter, your ruler, in the second house of money, and that can also show you how maybe you can earn money in a better way, or how you can manage your money in a better way for you. Jupiter is slowly, after this full moon, going to be entering new territory altogether. Do listen to the introduction to this video for more details on that. But when Jupiter moves into this new territory, you're going to have a situation where you're now able to take the information that you gleaned last year when Jupiter was in this part of your chart from mid-May until the end of October, and understand that that showed you something about how it is that you're showing up for yourself financially, what might need to change in terms of your self-worth, in terms of your income or your investments. And this is, I find, really, really supportive, because Pisces are getting the benefit of both Venus and Jupiter right now at this full moon. The third house is where we find some tension to this full moon for you, Pisces. That means communication and your everyday sort of circle, your everyday experience of your neighborhood or your siblings and cousins and friends and people around you. There is some kind of change there, or an adjustment that's required. That's not necessarily a negative thing. Squares are just or areas of tension. They require some kind of adjustment. Don't take this in such a way as you're going to be somehow forced to do something that is against your will. It's something that you're feeling already. It's something you know. This is already ongoing for a very long time, and Uranus might trigger a new development, a new change in that regard. That can also be as simple as changing the way that you're communicating around things, showing up for yourself in a different way through how you speak about things. That can also be in terms of business, if you're in business for yourself. Issues around commerce are also third house issues. And you've got Mars moving through the fourth house, and so you might find that that energy of Mars has been triggering your desire to reorganize how you live and even where you live potentially, or causing some kind of tension around family or home issues for you since already last August of 2022. Now Mars is moving forward again. It's slowly picking up speed, and eventually by the end of February is covering completely new territory. And so pay attention also to what's been going on in general since last August, and you'll get a lot of information about what it is that you're understanding now and really sensing what needs to change in your everyday experience. Best wishes for all of that, Pisces, and I'll see you in the next video.